Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of GC Live, the Hard Fowl. I'm Intern Joe. With me, as always, is your mom's favorite player, Collyn Taylor. Collyn, how are we doing this week?
Oh, buddy, I am great. I spent all weekend pretty much traveling between baseball locations. I get a day of yard work today, and then I'm back on the road tomorrow.
Very nice. Very nice.
For the lovely SEC tournament, which kicks off Wednesday for South Carolina. We will go ahead and go there. In the words of the viral TikTok going around right now, go Vols, roll tide, SEC. So, yes, we're headed up there. I got my yard work done today for the first time this year, which was electric. Got to use my new dethatcher, which is like the oldest thing in the book for me. So ready to talk some hoops, and I got 2 steaks sitting out, getting to room temp, and those are hitting the grill as soon as we hang up. So we'll be in on a tight and crisp, probably 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm so jealous. I already ate. But before we get things kicked off, Collyn, you want to tell us who we are brought to the viewers by?
No, I'm just kidding. Clint Hammond, you can see him right there. Movement Mortgage Network. You can see his NMLS number right there on the screen. You see his email, phone number, all of that fun stuff. He's the presenting sponsor of everything Gamecock Central Live. You're watching this. He's helping sponsor it. He can help you, your mom, your dad, your second cousin twice removed, find a home or sell one that you already have. So call Clint. He's a big Gamecock fan, huge supporter of us and what we do. So we're asking you to support the people that support us, and Clint is one of the guys you can go and either sell your house, find a home, and get you living where you want to be living, or sell a place where you don't want to be living anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Our good friend Clint Hammond helped a lot of our staff members with their mortgage and house-related needs. So, Collyn, I guess kicking it off, I guess we got to start. The reason why I have the shades on, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to have the shades on this week, but the main reason to have the shades on is the women's basketball team clinching yet another SEC championship. Early thoughts? What'd you think of the Lady Gamecocks?
They're really good. And you hear it all year of like, oh, well, they're so deep. And it really kind of showed this week when you talk about, Letitia and me here having a huge tournament, probably should have been tournament, all tournament team. Leah Boston having a big tournament. Zia Cook coming up big in moments. Bree Beal, Victoria Saxton with a huge game against, I want to say Arkansas, if I am remembering correctly. And these teams, great teams find a way to go from here to here when it comes time to play in a tournament, a win or go home. And you saw that from South Carolina. They dominated from the word go this week, and it was everything you probably thought it was going to be if you're South Carolina in terms of dominating, in terms of winning. I want to say they won. I can't remember the scores off the top of my head, but the winning never gets old, and South Carolina found a way to just rattle through and win these games.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was all that and more, especially in the championship game. They were able to do it without starting point guard Kara Fletcher. Raven Johnson stepped up in a big way. And it does, Collyn. It shows how deep this team really is and how far they can go. They beat Tennessee in grand fashion. They beat them 74-58. It's a pretty substantial amount of points without their starting point guard, too. Big game from Zia Cook, 24 from her, showing her veteran leadership, and Aaliyah Boston getting the job done as well in the post. I guess my coolest takeaway from it's not necessarily a moment from the game, but from after is when Aaliyah Boston shared the award with LA, Letitia, me here. I thought that was super cool.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was really, really awesome.
Yeah. And it shows how tight this team is, right? We've been talking about it for weeks. That's why they win. They're so close and they're so tight knit. It's one big family. They don't call them the fams for nothing. It's all one big family within the program.
Yeah, and that's what you want. This is such a terrifyingly deep team, but it's a terrifyingly close team at the same time. You're talking about a group that, just finds ways to continue to get closer, and these the freshies, as they're called. I think that's the name we're giving them. They're in year 4 of playing together. I mean, they've played with Victoria Saxton for their entire careers. They've been together for so long, and they've probably gotten too sick of each other at times. Oh, yeah. But they find ways to win, and they find ways to just, you can tell which teams it's kind of BS, and you can tell you can just tell when teams are going, and they really, really, really understand how to play together. They understand what their roles are, and I think that's the biggest thing is they understand this is a collection of like insane talent, but they all understand their role, and someone's got to be the leading scorer, but everyone else has to have a role, and they embrace that to a T. And you're seeing that, and they don't care who gets 20 as long as somebody gets 20. And that's something that a lot of great teams have, and I think this one does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you have somebody like Dawn Staley at the helm, it's pretty easy to win. I mean, Dawn's been doing it for long enough now, and she's going to keep doing it until she decides to retire. And this just kind of proves her greatness even further, just adding another ring title to her resume, and keeping it rolling. And I mean, with the undefeated season, not really showing a sign of weakness in the SEC tournament, getting better as they go is really something to look forward to and kind of look into the NCAA tournament at, is because down the stretch in the season, they did show some signs of weakness. But I mean, when it came to crunch time in the SEC tournament, they blew all competition out of the water. And so, I mean, I think one would think it would be kind of the same mentality, same mindset for the NCAA tournament. You saw what also too, a little bit of rest can do to this team too. It's crazy what, this team did. They just came out and blew everybody out of the water. There was no competition. Meanwhile, a team like LSU and Tennessee went right down to the wire. And then, South Carolina did what they did to Tennessee in the championship game. So it really shows how high above they are than everyone else.
And they played Arkansas, right? Then they beat Ole Miss, and then they beat Tennessee, right? I'm getting that correct in my head. There were a lot of things I was paying attention to this weekend. So Arkansas, I'm looking at ESPN's bracketology right now. Arkansas is one of the first 4 out. So they're very much a team that you could see playing in the NCAA tournament. Ole Miss right now is considered by ESPN an 8 seed, and Tennessee's a 5. So South Carolina they didn't play another number 2 seed. They didn't play another number, a top 4 seed in a bracket, but they played, relatively speaking, either a bubble team that is fringe NCAA tournament or a tournament team, and then 2 surefire tournament teams, and dominated essentially from the word go. So that's a good sign. If you're South Carolina, bigger challenges await. I know that, just because at some point you're going to have to run into an Iowa, an Indiana, an Ohio State, a Virginia Tech, a Stanford, especially, maybe another LSU, LSU maybe down the road, a Maryland again. You're going to run into one of those teams, but you've passed every test so far. And, I hate to compare things to Clemson, but you hear Dabo talk about you're going into championship mode, and good teams know when to crank it up. And this is a South Carolina team that knows when their backs are against the wall, might not be the right terminology, but they know, if we lose, not only does this undefeated season go away, but we don't win a national title. So that's huge if you're South Carolina. They understand it. They understand it to an absolute T. It's impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it just, like I said, it shows how much better they are. They beat each team by at least 15. They beat Arkansas by almost 30, and they beat Ole Miss by almost 30. It's crazy. And then, the SEC, arguably, you can make a case for the Big Ten because of Iowa and Indiana, but the SEC has had a lot more of the higher ranked teams this year in women's basketball. So by the utter dominance of that conference, and I would assume that they're going to do the same to the Big Ten. And we saw what Dawn I remember them game planning because I had a class with one of her GAs and they were talking about how they were game planning around Caitlin Clark in Iowa. And I mean, the scouting report and everything that I got was they were so ready for it and everything and like that. And I mean, we've seen what they can do to teams that have the one player that can, score all the buckets, right? Dawn knows how to design a system around that and knows how to isolate one player and shift her defense over and do all the things that you need to do to beat one team or a team that has the one player that's, scoring all these points. So, I mean, personally, Collyn, like, I don't see an end for them really. Like, I really don't. I don't see any. I mean, so far, right? I mean, we'll have to wait to see till the brackets drop and see who's on their side. But so far, like, I really don't see anything in the near future.
No, and here's the thing, too. It'd be one thing if next year's team was undefeated going into the tournament and you're starting to say, I don't know, like potentially, if Aaliyah might not be back, Bree Beal, all these seniors have a chance to go pro. Like you're replacing a lot. And if they're undefeated going in, you're like, I don't know, man. Like, these younger players have been on this team, but they haven't been the guy on it. Yeah. This is Aaliyah Boston's played now in 2 Final Fours. Bree Beal, 2 Final Fours. Like everyone on this team pretty much has played in 2 Final Fours, including 1 national title team. They understand the pressure that these games have. They understand what they're going to see game in and game out. And I don't think you can put a price on that going into the tournament of just people that have been there before. They understand the grind of, play on Friday, off day Saturday, play Sunday. Like they understand that. And that's something that I think for South Carolina, you hang your hat on and say, we have not only the best collection of talent in the country, you have arguably the player of the year on your team and 7 to 8 players that have been there before. Like who's betting against that going into March? Like who's betting against that? Nobody. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they do and kind of who's on their bracket. I'm looking right now at ESPN's bracketology. Breaking news. South Carolina is the number 1 overall seed. Who would have thunk? Playing in Greenville, which again, if you're the number 1 seed, you should be playing close to home. Yep. They would play. ESPN has them playing the winner of Chattanooga, Southeastern Louisiana, the play-in game. Gonzaga, Baylor are the 8-9, and then your top 4 seeds in that regional is South Carolina as your 1, Utah as your 2, then your number 3 seed is Ohio State, and your number 4 seed is North Carolina. So those are your top 4 seeds in that regional. Then I'm looking at some other notable ones. Colorado's in there, Iowa State's in there, Florida State, who they beat in the Elite 8 one year to go to the Final Fours in that. Marquette's in there. So that's kind of what South Carolina, like ESPN's projecting South Carolina to be.
Yeah.
But who knows what that looks like moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see who they get paired up with. Right now, the other 2 seeds for ESPN are Iowa as a 2 seed. LSU is a 2 seed. Maryland is a 2 seed. That's interesting. So, then Duke is a 3. UConn a 3. So you have a couple, dangerous teams on that, top 4 seed line, top 16 seeds. But it's going to be fun. I think, if I'm handicapping it right now, I think South Carolina wins the national title. They're that good. But they're going to have to – they're not going to win every game by 20, I don't think. Now they could, but we'll see what that looks like in the tournament and how much I think it's Selection Monday, right?
Yeah.
So that's the 13th. I think that's right.
Yep.
Selection Sunday is the 12th.
Yep. We've got a little something going on the 13th we'll get to.
Yes. So, I believe I believe that's when the stuff comes out. So
the 13th, right after Selection Sunday, I believe.
Yeah. So we'll know South Carolina's fate. They're going to play at home. Yeah. And they'll more than likely play in Greenville before going to Dallas for the Final Four if they get that far.
Absolutely. And I mean, closing it, I guess, on women's basketball here, I loved your point about like how if any team is going to go down the stretch and, you'd be worried about, because I mean, normal teams, you'd be worried about them losing a game and, going into the tournament. Okay. Like they haven't faced adversity, but Chris also brought it up too. Like this team is so experienced. They understand, what a loss is, and they understand, they know how to take things from an almost loss, like Ole Miss a couple weeks ago and stuff like that. But I agree completely. I think this team is so experienced and there's so much talent and so much camaraderie. I mean, this team is so tight knit that you don't necessarily need a loss to go into the tournament and necessarily see like adversity. So that's what I mean. That's why I have the faith on for this women's basketball team, just because that's how they're going to go far, is because like they just have so much experience up and down across the roster.
Yes. Now let's transition to the team that is yet to play in their conference tournament. South Carolina men, who won a game. And they won a game. They beat Georgia, a team they probably should have beat a month and a half ago. But they beat Georgia. They locked themselves into the number 12 seed in the SEC tournament. We'll play Monday night at 7 Eastern. Or no, Wednesday night. Sorry, this is Monday night. Wednesday night at 7 Eastern against Ole Miss, a team they beat by 3 at their place, lost to earlier in the season by 12. With South Carolina was still kind of trying to figure things out. But before we get into a quick preview, because this is our last show before South Carolina goes and plays in the SEC tournament, what did you think of South Carolina's game against Georgia? You come home, senior day for Hayden Brown. What did you make of what South Carolina did, where they were able to hold on and win that one?
I thought it was a great team effort, right? And everyone post-game talked about, I mean, you brought up our guy Hayden Brown. Like everyone post-game talked about how special it was to get that win for Hayden. And I think it was all that and more. Like we saw the team play kind of how Hayden Brown plays, right? Gritty, scrappy. I mean, it was a scrappy win. I mean, getting in on the inside, grabbing rebounds, being able to play as a team, right? On senior night for the team player, like the prime example of what a team player is, they got it done. And I mean, we heard how highly everyone speaks of Hayden Brown post-game. Like, I think that says a lot about, who he is, number one. And also two, I guess this team, like, right. Like it silences a lot of what, people have been saying about this team and how they're playing for, themselves and stuff like that and whatnot. I think what Georgia proves is that they are playing together as a team. It's just, it's been what Lamont has been saying all year, is like they just haven't gotten some of the bounces, or they haven't been able to put it together at the right times to get wins like that. And I mean, I think that win just kind of proves that they are playing together as a team. And, two, they wanted to go out on a positive note. I mean, at least in the regular season.
Yeah. This is not a good team. I'm not saying that this is a good team. Record would indicate they're not. They're 9 games below 500, and they won 4 SEC games. But this is – teams find ways to win ugly. You have to find a way to win ugly.
Yep.
And this South Carolina shot 8 of 38 from 2, 2 of 14 from 3, and you still find a way to win. This was – Georgia helped in some cases, but this was one of your best defensive games in a very long time. Georgia averaged only 83 points per 100 possessions, which is really good defensively. You forced 16 turnovers. You only sent them to the line 13 times, which is a lot better than what you did in Athens. You get to the line 31 times because you're aggressive. You make 19 of them, which needs to be better. But you find a way to win this game. You out-rebound Georgia. They only get 8 offensive rebounds. You get 16 offensive rebounds. You get the Michi that you need. Like, Michi is one of those guys where, like, every now and again he's going to pop off and go 6 of 8 from 3 and hit a bunch of crazy shots and do all this. He only went 0 of 3, but still finished with 18 points.
Yep.
Still finished with 7 assists, 3 turnovers because he got to the line. He finished 8 of 11 from the line. 5 of 8 from 2. That's like, there's going to be nights where your shot's just off, and you have to find other ways to impact the team. Michi found a way to do that. A big day from Jacoby Wright too. Aiden Brown with 13 points, 5 boards. Just you can't say enough about that kid and how level-headed he's been through all of this and understanding what this year kind of was. So just a team win. You see some positives in there. Now, Georgia hadn't been playing well. They had been struggling, but you take advantage at home and you get a senior day win for your guy, Hayden Brown. And now it's about going into the SEC tournament and doing whatever you can to get a win against Ole Miss and find a way to just win that game and see what you can do against Tennessee, a team that's blown you out twice. So before we dive into this Ole Miss game, Joseph, would you like to give everyone an update on Taxiety, which
absolutely
about a month away from that tax day?
Yeah, absolutely. Collyn, it is indeed tax season. So Taxiety is that uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time, so if you're in a hurry for your refund, call the tax team at Liberty Tax. Fast, accurate, and guaranteed. On the other hand, if you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, talk to the Liberty Tax team to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. Locally owned and operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. Open 9 to 9 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays with multiple service options. Start the Liberty Tax mobile app or through the desktop portal. Make an appointment or just walk in. Give a call to upload your tax documents, and when you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. Their number is 803-462-5576. Once again, their number is 803-462-5576. Give them a call for all of your tax needs this tax season. Because it is, Collyn, April's right around the corner. It is March, the best time of year, but
yes,
April is right around the corner.
Some would say this is March.
Yes, this is March. Also, real quick, to everyone who does have questions, we will get to those at the end. I have a little Q&A segment right at the end, but we will get to those coming soon. Collyn's got dinner, so we're going to try to keep it a little light tonight.
Yeah. Ole Miss. What does South Carolina have to do to beat Ole Miss?
The same thing that they did against Georgia. Gritty. They have to win gritty, win ugly. I mean, we've been talking about it, right? And I mean, one thing I would say about Michi against Georgia is, him going over 3 from 3. Like, he got to the line and still got 18 points, right? Like, that's something we haven't seen out of him yet this year. And that's how they're going to have to, play against Ole Miss to win. It's going to be tough. It's the SEC tournament, a lot of, expectations. And then obviously your next game, if you do win that game, it's not going to be a fun one by any means. You're playing a Tennessee team that has blown you out. It's going to be a long day if you do win. But I mean, this team, I guess the Georgia win definitely does help because number one, you get a break here. And so you do get a chance to, relax a little bit before and recollect and try to put everything into this game because odds are you probably aren't making it past Tennessee, but so like this last game is probably one of your last games of the year. So you need to put everything into it and show a good face and give everything you got really. So I think you got to win ugly. You got to win by getting to the free throw line, getting the offensive boards. You need a big game from Josh Gray. You need a big game from Michi, Gigi, the whole 9 yards. And Gigi, congrats to him for being named SEC All-Freshman Team.
Rightfully so. Deservedly so.
Absolutely. But yeah, Collyn, you got to win ugly. And that's how this basketball team has been because, they're not the greatest team in the world, obviously. So to win games in this league, you got to win ugly.
Yeah, and that's one thing. If you're South Carolina, you held on and beat Ole Miss. You got a big day from Jacoby Wright in Oxford. This is an interest. These teams are so similar over the last since January 28th, when South Carolina played that overtime game against Georgia. South Carolina is rated by Bar Torvik as the number 134 team in the country. Ole Miss, since January 28th, 131. So, I mean, literally 3 spots separate them. Ole Miss is scoring 108.5 points per 100 possessions. South Carolina scoring 108. flat. South Carolina's allowing 104.6 points per possession. Ole Miss allowing 104.7. So literally a tenth of a point per 100 possessions. And Ole Miss 2-9, South Carolina 3-8 with a win over Ole Miss in there. And I think they both beat Georgia, and then they both beat LSU in that span. So like, if you're South Carolina, like you feel pretty good because you just went for the most part toe to toe with Alabama. You won 3 games down the stretch.
Yeah,
which is huge for this team. You went toe to toe with Alabama. You should have won that Alabama game. Then you play Mississippi State close in stretches. You get blown out by Tennessee, but this is a South Carolina team that, has had some close calls. You had a chance to get over the hump against Vanderbilt, over the hump against Arkansas, Missouri. You've played good teams close. Now, can you do what you've been doing over the last month and beat up on the teams that are near you in the standings?
Yeah.
Those are the 3 wins. Their 3 wins are against the number 11 seed. Their 3 wins, the number 11 seed, the number 13 seed, and the number 14 seed. The teams right around them in the standings. So if you're South Carolina, can you go and do that and beat up on that team? You need a good as we wrap up, before we get to questions, give me 2 guys that South Carolina, besides Gigi, South Carolina absolutely has to have a big game from.
Yeah, obviously Gigi Jackson, but my personal favorite being Josh Gray. You need a post presence in every game that you play, and Josh Gray being one of them. I've been really high on his game so far this year. I've been, really high on his impact and what he can do. I think, especially matching up against a team like Ole Miss, we saw, in the win, what he was able to do on the boards. It was so big. So I think, obviously Josh Gray is one of them. You need that interior force, and it's honestly been lacking for the South Carolina team. Like, you really haven't seen a big post presence until Josh Gray kind of picked it up along towards the end of the year. So Josh Gray being one of them, and then Michi Johnson, you got to get your point guard involved. And then my sleeper pick would be Jacoby Wright, because he's the 6th man. He's made himself the 6th man by default. He's came off the bench and been able to do really, really, really good things at the guard spot. And with the one big being Josh Gray, you're gonna need to play some small ball. So Jacoby Wright's gonna be so key in that. And obviously Michi, because you want a big game from your point guard. You need a big game from your star point guard. But when it boils down to it, Jacoby Wright and Josh Gray, you really need big games from those 2.
Yeah. I'll go 2 different ones. Since you took those 2 off the board, I'll go 2 different ones.
A little gamesmanship.
All right. So I'll go Hayden, obviously.
Yeah, our guy.
Hayden, just does the gritty stuff. Rebounds, does all this, does the things, and this guy is probably going to be playing with his hair on fire if he's him, knowing that unless South Carolina wins the SEC tournament, they're not going to the NCAA tournament. A guy that knows his college basketball career is coming to an end. He's going to be playing all out. He understands that. And so what he does, I think you're going to see a focused Hayden. I think you're going to see a guy that's really understanding that. And then since you said Jacoby, you said Michi, I'll go. Ooh.
I did steal both guards there, technically.
I'll say Zach Davis. I think Zach Davis.
Yep. Good pick. Really good pick.
He's played fine. He's actually played pretty doggone well of late. I think he was plus 12 against Georgia, if I am not mistaken. Guy that has some length, some athleticism. He's not a great 3-point shooter. But a guy that, has some efficiency to him offensively, has some length, has some ability to rebound from the guard spot. If he can hit a 3 or 2 to open things up and really get to the rim and get to the line, that helps you too. Because the guard spot is so thin right now. But I would say Hayden, obviously, and then I would say Zach Davis is somebody that if South Carolina wants to play well, they're going to need those 2 guys to play competent basketball when they're on the floor.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I agree. I think, and credit you for picking two guys that I didn't pick. And you asked for two, I gave you three. So
Yeah, you cheated, and that's
I
fine.
did. It is okay though. It is all right. It is all right.
Yes.
All right. So we got plenty of questions as we transition
Let's do it.
into our Q&A section of the show. So here we go. First one is from SC Scout Guy. Is it wrong that I am sort of scared that they did not lose one game this season to get that out of their system? That being the women's basketball team. Collyn, what you think?
I wouldn't be worried if this was a younger team, sure. But I think because they're so old, because they're so veteran, I wouldn't be worried about that. I would, if there's something that's going to come back and bite the South Carolina team, I think it's maybe an inconsistent night shooting, and you just run into a team that hits everything from three and just makes all these tough shots. That's what I would worry. I don't think that because they haven't lost, that would worry. This team knows what it looks like to win. So I don't think that's the biggest deal. If you're South Carolina, I think there are other things to worry about outside of not having lost, just because this team's so veteran.
Yeah, I agree. I think just because this team is so experienced, and I think Chris brought it up. This team has lost in the past, and they know what that feels like, and they also know what it feels like to be on a big win streak and then have that loss. So, and they've also, came down to the wire in games like Ole Miss too. So they know, Dawn knows how to take things from games even when you win by a narrow margin. So, I don't think so. And I think, just because of the experience that this team has, I think it's big.
Yeah.
So, all right, next question from Top Gamecock. Hey, Collyn, I'm a bit worried about our big man play center. Do you think we can play to our strengths and play small ball?
I think they're already kind of playing small ball, right? Like your rotation right now, Michi, Jacoby, that's two guards. Hayden Brown's 6'5". He plays bigger than 6'5", but he's 6'5". And then Gigi Jackson, and then Josh Gray. And Josh in SEC play, first guy in Ken Palmera for South Carolina to finish number one in offensive and defensive rebound rate. So he doesn't, and 8th in block shot rate. So you're getting good productive minutes from him. I think when you have to go down the rotation hole, I think you can play a little bit more small ball just because BBV has struggled. Maybe move Gigi to that center spot, play 5 out potentially because Hayden's a good rebounder. You can do that. You can move Zach Davis into that 3 spot, have Gigi play the 4, Hayden essentially play the 5 from a rebounding perspective. Yeah, from a rotational sense, sure. But I think that you're getting what you need from your starting 5, and now it's about that next step of when your other 2 or 3 guys that you play heavily off the bench, what does that look like?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you're right. They are kind of doing it already. I would love to see the look with Gigi at center when you do give Josh Gray a rest, because he really is. BVB is more of a power forward in my eyes, a little less of a center. Josh Gray is really the only true center you have on the roster. So I would love to see the Gigi look and play that kind of small ball, but I think this team does it well. Lamont's used to coaching guards and stuff like that. So he's pretty good at it. And so I think so.
Front court help is the number one thing I think you need from South Carolina's perspective.
Absolutely. Definitely. Moving to another one from SC Scout Guy. So, Collyn, do you think the final record would be any different had Ibrima Dibba not lost for the season before it started? Sorry, I butchered that.
Yes, I think it would have been different. Yep. Do I think they would have made the tournament? No, I don't think this is a tournament team with or without Ebo on it. But I'm looking, maybe you win that Davidson game. Maybe you keep, in Charleston, maybe you win that Davidson game. Maybe he helps you a veteran presence against East Carolina. Maybe he helps you win that Vanderbilt game. So you're talking about 3, maybe 4 games he helps swing for you. So you'd be closer to 500, but I still don't think you're a tournament team with him out there. But he's a guy that would have helped. You're not going from 11-20 in the regular season to 20-11, but you're a better team because he's older, he's experienced. He knows how to play he's a guy that, I mean, I'm looking at his KenPom page now. Pretty high turnover rate, really high turnover rate, but shot 32% from three, which is fine. Shot 81% from the free throw line, almost 82% from the free throw line. Was top 25 in the Big South in effective field goal percentage, 11th in true shooting percentage, 2nd in assist rate, doesn't commit many fouls, gets to the free throw line. A guy that would have helped you, certainly, but I don't think they're a tournament team with Ebo out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Next question from RL. When will the hard foul become the foul balls once basketball is complete? Yeah, actually, RL. That is our announcement for tonight. It's funny that you called it the foul balls because that is the name of the show. Coming next Monday, Collyn and I will be doing GC Live, Foul Balls, our baseball show kicking off just in time for SEC baseball play. I'm excited, Collyn. It's going to be a lot of fun. This baseball team is really, really, really good, really deep. It's going to be fun. Got to have some guests too, some good guests. Oh boy, I can't wait.
Baseball is off to a really great start. I'm really excited to kick that off and talk to a bunch of people. Baseball guys are characters, so hopefully some former players, hopefully some people that maybe Garnet Trust helps us get in here and talking on the show. So I'm excited. I'm really, really excited to see what this looks like and what we can do with it, because this baseball team's a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And plenty of characters too, like you said. Yes. So it makes it a whole lot of fun. Next question from H-Man. What's for dinner, Collyn? What do we got?
I got 2 New York strips sitting next to me. We got potatoes in the oven. And then I'm going to grill some asparagus too. So I'm doing that. And there's a trick that one of a mutual friend taught me. You marinate an onion in teriyaki sauce and you grill the onion, and you can eat the onion essentially like that. And it just tastes like teriyaki, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. So we'll garnish with the steak, and I don't season my steak with nothing crazy, salt, pepper, and oil. I cook it on the grill, and that thing's going to get fired up probably here in about 5 minutes once we finish up all these questions.
That's perfect. Yeah, I low-key dinner tonight for the Machikas. We did hamburgers, but we're having steaks tomorrow night. Grandparents are coming over. As you guys all know, I'm back home in South Bend, freezing my butt off for spring break. It's been nice to see the family, all that. But, steaks tomorrow night. I'm excited.
There you go.
Yep, should be good. Next question from RL. Appreciate the donation too. What movie do you wish you could watch again for the first time? I have my answer because I looked at my Letterboxd during the ad break. But Collyn, what you think? I can let you think. I can give you my answer. Right now.
I'm seeing Avengers Endgame in the comments, and that might be mine because the moment in the theater for that one was was not like anything I've ever experienced before in the theater when the portals open and then you see everybody. So I'll say Avengers Endgame. It's a cop-out answer because it's in the comments, but like that one where you're sitting in the theater and you're watching it with everybody, that one was pretty special.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good take, which I did not see it in theaters because I'm lame. But I have 2 answers. One being on the theme of superhero movies. The Dark Knight Rises. I was little or I shouldn't say little, but I was, 10, 11, 12, like peak Batman years when that movie came out. So that would be fun to be a kid again. But also, too, Wedding Crashers, one of my favorite all-time films ever.
The Hangover, I would love to go see.
That's another good one. Yeah.
Like if I was 27 now going to see Hangover the first time, I think I would appreciate it more than when I was 11 and I saw it for the first time.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. Baba Ganoush, like Vince Vaughn, Chicago legend. Like
Spider-Man No Way Home would have been. I would love to. I was older when I saw that, but Spider-Man No Way Home.
So you haven't seen
that would have been.
Oh. I need to, well, that's part of my goal here for South Bend.
Is to catch up on these movies.
My Marvel movies. Yep, that is the goal. But yeah, interesting question. I love it. RL always bringing the creativity. SC Scout guy. What about a spark? Or what about Sparkman to give us a spark? Absolutely, I'd love to see him. Continue to.
It's so much fun. It
is. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Hayden Brown, playing like everybody does in pickup, like plays like I do, playing pickup, gets rebounds, can shoot a little bit, little dicey, can drive, that kind of thing. And then Eli Sparkman gives all the shooters some hope too.
Yeah.
I love it.
Real gritty.
Yes.
Coach's kid. First one in, last one out,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, Lamont loves him. Like in his Collyn shows, like he is so high on Eli Sparkman. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like they just don't, with Chico out, with Ford Cooper banged up, like you don't have any other guards. So it's been cool to watch him do that and get to play. And I'm looking at his stats. He was 0 of 1 against Georgia, but before that was 4 of 5 on threes because they just leave him open. And he's a good enough shooter to knock them down if they're open.
That three again in the Alabama game, I was on the couch because Mike and I had just finished up talking Wednesdays. Yeah. I was audibly excited. My neighbors knocked on my door and were like, "Is something wrong?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're not winning the game. Like, what are you doing?" But anyways, Eli Sparkman, the GOAT, the absolute GOAT, along with Hayden Brown too. Shout out him.
Yeah.
Last question coming from H-Man. What win total would be an acceptable improvement for the men next season? Both for Collyn and Joe. It's a tough one.
It's hard to say.
It is.
And I don't like I'm not a huge, you have to win this many games. Because if I say South Carolina has to win 18 games for this to be an improvement and they win 17, but knock off Tennessee or Alabama or Kentucky or whatever, then what, and you don't hit 18, was that season really a failure? So I'll say this team finishing over 500, absolutely. Certainly has to be an improvement. Injury, if they stay healthy, if injuries don't creep up, if they're not missing player, over 500 for sure. Finishing close to middle of the pack, top middle of the pack in the league, and just looking more cohesive from the jump. Because more than likely you're going to be returning guys that have played in the system for a year. You hope that you're going to get more talented through the portal, through recruiting, guys that are more tailor-made for the system compared to maybe others. So you feel better about what this team is. And, you have to look better. You have to pass the eye test a little bit more, especially early compared to what you did this past season. And, well above 500, I think a couple games at minimum above 500. And if you get the right collection of talent, if you get the right collection of everything, maybe you contend for a tournament spot. But you have to show incremental improvement. You have to show stylistically better. The KenPom page right now for South Carolina is a lot of light and dark red, which is not good. That has to get closer to green in more categories than not if you're South Carolina. You have to show a ton of progress and get over that 500 hump, obviously, and then maybe hover around 500 in league play, maybe 8 and 10, 7 and 11, somewhere close to that, and depending on how good the league is next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think right now, for me at least, it's a little too early to call because, the transfer portal isn't open. I know Lamont wants to attack it heavily. We don't know who's staying.
We just don't know who's going to be on the team, too.
Exactly. That's my thing, right? And, I don't know who's staying. I don't know who's going. And, once we start to get an idea of who's leaving, I think we'll get an idea of what Lamont wants to attack in the portal. And, he'll be able to talk about it a little bit more on what he wants. But the season's not over yet. The portal's not open, so we can't say anything about it. So we don't necessarily know. I mean, we have kind of an idea and we could speculate, but it's hard for me. I don't necessarily want to put a number down yet because of that. And once we start to add guys, I'll be able to start kind of putting some down. Right. But also, too, you're right, Collyn, with college basketball, it's flexible. You can win big games, but you could also have a low win total, which is what we saw this year. But I would, say this year is kind of a success in terms of year one, wouldn't you? At least for year one, obviously you'd like a little bit more for Gigi, but I don't know. It's so hard to do in college basketball, especially when you have got the way the transfer portal is and the way teams restructure and all that stuff. It's just so hard. So
year to year
win total, I just don't want to put anything down quite yet. Now, ask me in a couple months. I'd be able to make that statement. But
once we get a sense of who's here, who's playing well, who's doing well in the preseason, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do have one final question from Rachel and Russell. Do you think Lamont is an SEC coach?
Well, South Carolina's paying his check, so yes, he is an SEC coach.
By default.
He is an SEC coach.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, logistically, I think so.
The jury's still out. He was dealt a different hand, and it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of navigates the portal and how he's learned in the last year what it's like to be in the SEC, recruiting against SEC programs. I would, it's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts and what that process looks like. And I think it'll be interesting. And I think next year's team has a chance to take a jump. How much of one, we still don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, I think South Carolina athletics have seen a couple coaches in recent times make a big jump between year 1 and year 2. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lamont does it. And again, like the basketball programs, it's ripe for the picking, right? Like he's got
the transfer portal can help you.
Mm-hmm. And he has all of the transfer portal to start recruiting now. Like we've talked about that. We talked about that last week. He's got the entire summer now. So I think it's right for the pick. And I think there is a very, very, very big potential for them to make a big jump next year. But
absolutely.
Anyways, all right. I'm Intern Joe. That is Collyn Taylor. Join us next week for episode 1 of the Fowl Balls.
Yes, and we'll be back on to recap the season that is after the SEC tournament, whenever that ends, and we will keep you updated on all that fun stuff as it happens. Once South Carolina, they're either going to win it or they're going to get eliminated, and we'll see what that looks like over the next 48 to 72 to maybe 96 hours.
We'll see. But as always, I'm Intern Joe. That's Collyn Taylor. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.